Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another kind of current event video with Saltivation. Today you have Tram and Meredith here, and we thought, Tram and I have been troubleshooting with a kind of a new client. They're primarily an online retailer, and there's just been a lot of stuff going on. They're a fairly new business, new sales. I wanted to share some of the kind of issues that they're dealing with and kind of break down some myths maybe that they had been presented as, hey, this is super easy, we can handle it, we can be all things to all people, and realistically that's not it. So realistically nothing is ever as easy as it seems or is presented to an unknowing buyer, and someone who just wants to get it right. And so yeah, Tram, if you want to give us a little background on what we're dealing with, we can just talk through some of those things.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo the theme. I think you're saying it's just not that simple.
Yeah.
Sales tax is not simple, and I think with this particular client and their situation, it's really um, become apparent to the client that it isn't that simple, and you just can't rely on kind of just the basics, especially when it comes to technology, when you're relying on, the ERP system or the shopping cart to collect sales tax properly. Um, this situation has been very challenging for the client because they thought that if they had like a shopping cart, they could turn on the native functionality and start collecting, and then things would go smoothly, meaning they've collected tax and they would just need to remit it. But what we've, helped them kind of open their eyes to is the fact that the way you do it, the decisions that you're making really impact kind of your responsibilities, your risk in terms of, hey, did you properly collect tax where you needed to, or did you just collect it and now you don't know what to do with it, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, if you want to elaborate
Yeah,
on any of
and
those things, Mare.
yeah, so kind of fundamentally what we have found in native functionalities within technology platforms, whether it's a shopping cart or an ERP, yes, they have the ability to collect tax, but it's at a fairly basic level and doesn't kind of dive into the opportunity for nuances, right? So here in Colorado, I'm sure those who are regular listeners, um, you hear us talk about it all the time, Colorado's home rules. The default, if you're going to turn on the state of Colorado in some of these ERP systems, carts, whatever, it will collect everywhere based on destination. Now we have home rules that, under Wayfair are going to be required to be collected and remitted. Um, However, it's an all or nothing, and you don't have the ability oftentimes to toggle between, yes, collect Denver, Boulder, Louisville, but don't correct Aurora, Longmont, Lakewood, etc. So then what you can find is you've turned on Colorado because you need to, but now you've collected all these home rules and there's a mixture of home rules, statutories, and you don't really know where to put it, how to put it in whatever kind of bucket that it belongs to. And you can get that, a couple of the other states, we've got Alaska and Louisiana that also have consolidated rates. Texas, you can make an election, right, to be kind of collect a consolidated rate. And if you set up your registration that way, you could over under collect. Because I think the consolidated rate is not at the, and Tram, you can call me out, is not at the highest 8.25% rate. I think it's somewhere around like 8 or 7.5 or something. So it's not, you could have that over under collection depending on how you're registered. So while yes, your ERP system can, is it actually the best way to do it?
Yeah, and then on top of that, if you are just if you made a decision to rely on that native functionality and you have no idea what you're even supposed to do and you just turn the tax function on and you don't have nexus, meaning you don't have the requirement to even start collecting, that's in itself another big problem because our client here that we have been talking to, I mean, they essentially turned on Nexus everywhere, meaning they turned on the tax collection function and collected in all states, plus, the Puerto Ricos and
Some of the
territories and everything. So they didn't know what to do. And they thought, well, we've collected now. We'll register everywhere and get a license. They over registered because they didn't have physical presence, and they didn't exceed the economic thresholds under Wayfair, but they didn't know. They thought, well, we collected, now we need to register.
right.
So that causes, so much more burden and risk because now they don't even know what to do with it. So I think that's the biggest caution there. Like, we've had a lot of clients in the same shoes. So I think understanding what the rules are and being able to properly like assess when do I turn on the switch if I decide to use, some sort of tool or tax collection system, just be aware that you should know what you're doing before you do it.
Right. And with that too, it's, we always talk about it's like who you are, what you sell, right? Yes, it's all a thing, but if you're selling an article of clothing, there are states that don't tax clothing. There are thresholds associated with when a tax kicks in with clothing. You could sell a shirt and something that wouldn't be taxable, or, like a shirt and a taxable good. And you have a bundle to kind of incentivize, hey, buy this. I don't even know. You can get a 2-for-1 kind of thing. And so what do you do? Like, what taxability do you follow? Right. And I think in this instance, they maybe got some misleading kind of opinion based on, oh, well, you should map based on the most valuable piece in that kind of bundle, when generally it's typically oftentimes we advise, yes, you want to pick the most taxable, or really, what are you buying? Are you buying this and you happen to get this? So kind of that substance over form, taxability, kind of really covering your risk. And they didn't know any better, and it's not their fault. And what they really just wanted to do at the end of the day was the right thing, right? We want to manage all of our risk. We want to do it right. Our business moves super fast. Maybe we don't want to monitor thresholds, and we will just get a license right out of the gate. What you have to appreciate, though, is there's a timing difference, right? So you can want to collect, you can want to get a piece of paper, but it could take a state 3 months to process that piece of paper, where you actually have the ability to remit that tax. And once you have that piece of paper, you've got to set up your online accounts and who is actually going to file those returns. And if you're late, you're being subject to penalties and interest. Now, they may or may not be material. And so these are all things that, you've got to understand as your first kind of implementing anything, starting a new business, starting a new service line, implementing a new product sold through a different channel. Though these are just all components of things to think about, that we love compliant taxpayers and we love companies that want to do the right thing, but you got to understand what it takes to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, all those things, including making sure you follow the rules, and sometimes your customers know, like, I shouldn't be taxed on clothing because I live in Minnesota. So it's almost like you'll either get pushback from a customer, you'll maybe get a notice or a letter from a state government saying, "Oh, you've registered. Please tell us all about you." Right? And so not knowing those nuances and those rules really could get you, either your customers are upset, your customer base is unhappy with your service and what you've done, or you've just opened a can of worms with the state government.
Yeah. And remember, you know, people are in business to make money. So it's not necessarily the software company's fault or the ERP system's fault that they're, telling you these things, but just it's that old school mentality of like buyer beware. And, that it does matter, um, from start to finish. And again, going back, bring it full circle, is that nothing is as ever easy as it seems. Think, Tram, any last thoughts?
I think you said it all. I just it's not simple, and talk to your SALT advisor. Get
Yep.
advice. Get good advice.
Well, thanks everyone again for stopping in. We'll see you next time.